It's Accountech Bytes, a roundup of accounting technology so hot it needs its own red weather warning. I'm Tom Herbert. Thank you very much for tuning in. And if you find this useful, please remember to like, follow, or subscribe. Let's get straight into this week's news. And as part of a tax document, tax consultation dump yesterday, the UK government has nudged us a little further towards the adoption of B2B e-invoicing. So as the good folks at VATCalc lay out in this piece, the PEPL network will serve as the framework for e-invoicing. Here it is in the middle here, acting as the sort of conduit between the supplier and the buyer. The government also confirmed there will be no e-reporting obligations yet. That's where providers share details of those e-invoices with the government. According to this expected timetable, more details about the regime design, scope and introduction will be shared at Budgets 2026, with the development of the legislation, specifications, etc. expected to take about 3 years, with a phased mandated launch in April 2029, with perhaps smaller taxpayers coming in 2030. And as part of that same document dump, HMRC also launched a consultation on timely payments in income tax self-assessment. So looking at how some taxpayers could be moved from January and July tax payments towards in-year deductions, either through the payroll or if they're not on PAYE, then increasing the frequency of those payments on account. Now, with both of these things and more, Robin Milstead from AKA Chartered Accountants points out, change isn't necessarily the problem, but the pace of change is. In an opinion piece for us, she asks whether the success of tax reform is being forecast on a flawed assumption that agents will just keep absorbing that change. Let's take a look at some AI news now. And Big Four firm PwC and Anthropic, the parent company of Claude, have announced an expansion of their partnership, deepening how PwC uses that large language model to build technology, execute deals, and it says here, reinvent enterprise functions. Part of this is launching a new business group that they're calling Office of the CEO. So according to this AI CFO investor, PwC ran Claude on themselves first, calling themselves Customer Zero, and the internal work involved things like journal entries, variance analysis, annual planning, etc. The offering is one of those vague things where you're not exactly sure what they're up to, but apparently it's in production, whatever it is, citing delivery improvements of up to 70%. Again, it'd be quite useful to find out what that 70% actually is. Interesting case study here from Carl Flinders over at Computer Weekly. Apparently an AI-based law firm has won its first court trial. So this was a dispute with a freelancer who'd done about £7,000 worth of work and was chasing payment for it, and used Garfield AI to help pursue the case in court. So it says here she was able to generate pre-action correspondence and then prepare and issue court proceedings, although she was represented by a human barrister in court. It's certainly an interesting development, particularly around the preparation of things like documents, statements, and bundles. But it's also worth bearing in mind there are a lot of cases emerging where AI has been used wrongly and ended up with the users losing their cases or sometimes being punished for using AI. Management consultants Bain & Company have apparently been vibe coding replicas of software to assess whether acquisition targets have a competitive advantage as generative AI threatens to turn the tables on the software industry. So according to this from the FT, these vibe-coded mock-ups let potential buyers test how difficult the technology is to reproduce. And I guess stepping back a bit, you do find yourself asking the fundamental question here. Like, is a piece of software just the zeros and ones, or is it more about the relationship it has with its users and its place in the overall market? Perhaps sentiment isn't something Bain is able to vibe code. Here's some big news, and The Loop, formerly the Digital Disruptors, has acquired the Early Adopters Hub. So the digital transformation specialist who hosts the Digi Tools in a Cruel World podcast has snapped up the Early Adopters Hub, which I think has been going about 6 or 7 years, and provided those startups in the accounting industry with advice about how best to break in. Seems like a sensible matchup, and congratulations to all. Lindsay Clark from the Register reports that use of HMRC's IR35 status tool has dropped 71% over the past 2 years, with firms abandoning it in favour of alternative status assessment solutions and more comprehensive compliance processes, says IR35 Shield, an alternative status assessment solution. A bit of government sign-in news, and for the first time yesterday, all new individual taxpayers signing up for HMRC's digital services will need to create a gov.uk one login credential rather than a government gateway ID. According to Leila Gomshi, the program director at HMRC, from next year, the revenue will start inviting some of those government gateway individual users to move across to the new system. A little bit more sign-in news, and over the past couple of weeks, we have talked about agents needing multi-factor authentication to sign into their agent services account. Well, here's a reminder that agents have 1 week left to request that multi-factor authentication activation on the 15th of July. That's just part of the first tranche of adoption. If you miss that one, there's another deadline on the 19th of August. And if you miss that, then you're likely to be automatically migrated between September and October this year. If you're a Xero customer or you're on LinkedIn, then you may already be aware of Xero's upcoming price increases. While the simple package remains the same, Ignite and Grow rise by £2 a month, with £5 a month hikes for those larger tiers. Well, no one likes price rises. I always like to head back to the article I did a few years back with Billy McLaughlin, where she talked about the difference between price and value. A couple of interesting new apps that have appeared on the Xero App Store in June. So Exo Reports lets you pull live Xero data directly into Excel using custom formulas. Clarix is a financial planning and analysis platform. 445 helps accounting practices identify recurring spend patterns, while Medfin is a business intelligence platform for dental groups and clinics. Well, I never. Let's head over to MTD Corner now, and according to the folks at the Low Income Tax Reform Group, or Liturgy in my part of the world. Anyway, more than 100,000 unrepresented taxpayers are still to register for Making Tax Digital, with that August deadline looming. Sharon West says they're concerned that there's a substantial number of people who should register but don't realise they need to. Moving from taxpayers to agents, and Sam Wood from HMRC posts that to make sure agents have the best MTD experience when they call the agent dedicated line, then they need to select option 2, then option 3, and they're in. And if you'd like to hear more about MTD, particularly around preparing for that change to quarterly reporting, well, Accounting Web and the good people at Dext have a webinar for you. At 11 a.m. on the 30th of June, I'll be joined by Paul Lodder, Ryan Alderson and Laura Gallagher to discuss how firms are adapting their operations ahead of MTD and a few of the lessons learned from their early rollouts. Let's get on to some new stuff now, and bookkeeping and accounting training tool Hey Monica has announced a few changes to its scenario modules. So the scenarios are where the user, the trainee, is presented with an end-to-end situation, like year-end accounts, and walked step by step through those. So rather than requiring a new Xero trial account every time to complete these scenarios, Hey Monica has actually stitched in accounting software to the system, so users are able to stay in there and complete the work rather than having to pop in and out. Let's get on to some practice management bits and bobs now. And Engager has released the ability to add relationship types. Now can display a warning symbol in the top nav bar when an external mailbox loses authorization or disconnects, and has the ability to group deals by age, so you can see the longest open deals to the shortest. Practice management document management tool FYI has announced the launch of its new automation import wizard, so available to firms on its Pro and Elite plans. The new import wizard guides users through the steps when importing custom processes allowing users to map imported fields and components like templates, views, custom fields, etc. And last but not least, on the practice management beat, Sodium now has restricted client access. So you can now give users restricted access to clients, so not everyone in your practice sees every client. Now, off the back of the next phase of open banking, our payments tool Modular has launched its commercial variable recurring payments product. So the release is aimed at businesses that collect high volumes of recurring payments and want an alternative to direct debits. It lets a company take different amounts from a customer's bank account each month after that single initial approval, rather than seeking consent for every payment. And we started with VatCalc, so let's finish with Richard Asquith from VatCalc on when agentic AI meets your 2009 ERP export audio. And that's your lot. Thank you very much for watching. As always, if you'd be kind enough to like, follow, or subscribe, that would be great. Do sign up for my accounting technology email. That's with you every Thursday. Just pop your email address in the box and hit the yellow button. I'll be back next week with another video. Bye for now.